Hey guys, welcome to the Powerful Man Show, where we help married businessmen save their marriages without having to talk about it, get unstuck, and gain clarity in their lives. As I like to say, life is too short for average. I'm your host, Doug Holt, with my co host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. Now let's get this started. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Tim, my brother, how are you doing?
Do very well, my brother. How are you?
Doing awesome, man. Doing awesome. I'm really excited for wrapping up 2022 and going into 2023, which is when this episode goes out, will be in the first week of January. So great things coming our way. Unfortunately, for a lot of guys, this also is the week of Divorce Day. I know that's not the topic of this podcast. So, gentlemen, for those of you that have already gotten the unfortunate news that the divorce has been filed, my heart's with you guys. The rest of you guys, this is time to take action and take note. For those that don't know, Divorce Day is a day that's on a family law or a divorce lawyer's calendar or a solicitor if you're in the UK. And it is where most of the divorces are filed. They're filed the first week of January, specifically the first Monday of January. And so because of this is a day that, we take note of. The Powerful Man, unfortunately, we start getting a lot of phone calls from men who are trying to claw back in their marriage. And yes, a lot of men do, but you got to take action. You got to be expeditious about it and taking action and making sure you do so. So if that is you, my heart goes out to you. Please get on a call with one of our advisors over at thepowerfulman.com immediately. Stop this podcast and just go right there and get on that phone call as soon as possible. Because it's time to change. And what you want to change are some habits. And that's what we're going to talk about today, Tim.
Yeah, let's do it. Great timing.
Yeah. So we look at habits and routines, right? We know routines get us there. And in the States, we have a saying that we say, in baseball, it's all about hitting singles. You win by hitting singles. Everybody swings for the home run. That looks sexy and everything, but hitting singles wins games. And routines are those singles. The routines are the things that allow us to get there. And so, how do you establish a routine? What is the actual pattern of a routine and how is it recognized? And that's what we're going to talk about today, guys, along with what are some ways that you can establish your routines for 2023 to make sure that you're going to get where you want in 2024, right? So, the way I look at this is Tim Matthews, Doug Holt, we'll call it 2.0. And what do we have to do and get to Doug and Tim 3.0, right? What's there? Where's the gap? Now, when you look at and identify the gap, which is a whole nother conversation, but the basis of the gap are the routines. With the Powerful Man, we teach the Alpha Rise and Shine, the Alpha Decompression, and a whole host of other routines, even the Triad of Connection. So these are things you can get when you get inside the Activation Method, which is our flagship program. So when we look at routines, there's three core components in the routine cycle. And now this is published research that's been around for a long time when you look it up. And you really want to get to the science, right? This isn't just my opinion here. The first part of it, which is probably not unusual, is the trigger, right? Something has to trigger the routine. Now, these are good routines and bad routines, right? So for some of you guys, it's 5 o'clock, right? 5 o'clock happens, the first beer, scotch, whiskey gets cracked. Why? Because it's 5 o'clock and it becomes a routine. For some of you, it's when you walk by your pantry or your refrigerator, that's when you start snacking, right? You just unconsciously do it. That's the trigger. For some of you, it's when you come home and you see your wife. That's your trigger, right? So these routine cycles all start off with the trigger. Some examples again, just to really drive this home: an alarm clock going off. What does that trigger for you? We've talked many times in this podcast about how you can use alarms on your phone to set triggers to allow you to go through the cycle to get what you want. But you can even have a traffic light turning green, you're triggered to go, right? Turning red, you're triggered to stop. But at the same time, if that traffic light turns red, you could be triggered to tell yourself a story about how you're always late or whatever else it may be. All kinds of things along this line. I can list 1,000 triggers here, guys, that we see all the time. The important thing to know is it always starts with a trigger, whether it's a good routine or a bad routine, right? And if you know this, you can start new routines and you can also eliminate bad ones. Tim, anything you want to add to the number one?
Yeah, I do. That routine we've mentioned in the past about clothes, triggers, right? It's the end of your work day. If you are wanting to be able to get into the mindset of being the CFO, so the chief fun officer, what are some ways you can do that? Well, you make sure you get changed, right? If you're working from home, get changed out of your work clothes, get changed into your home clothes or CFO clothes, whatever you want to call them. We've spoken as well about having something above your door. So when you leave your office, you can tap it, right? I might say something like it's playtime, right? And coming into the office, you could have the same thing. You may tap it, that may say it's game time, right? Whatever it may be. But I think they're very good reminders because, like I said, we have spoken about things like that. And those are two that I think the men have said have helped them the most.
Yeah, and those are great routines. I have those implemented in my life, guys. I've talked about the one I have at the top of my door. I have two things I do. I had a custom metal sign made that I hit, and that enters into decompression for me. So you've already jumped ahead, Tim, because you're always smart. Once that trigger happens, then you have an action. Then something happens, right? Your alarm clock goes off. That's the trigger. Then there's an action. Now the action usually goes around one of the four E's. E is in the letter. So it's environment, ease, efficiency, and effectiveness, right? That we want to look at here. So what's the trigger happening? I'll use your alarm clock, right? What happens there in your environment that makes it easy or effective, right? What's going on in these areas that makes it efficient? So maybe your alarm clock goes off and you're like me and you grab your water that was sitting there, you put out the night before so you can make sure that you're hydrated when you wake up. Why are you hydrated? Right? You're hydrated because it's going to make you feel better. You actually lose water while you sleep. So hydration is really important right in the morning. So the alarm becomes the trigger for me. The action is drink water, right? That is the key. Now there is a third step, right? The third step's the reward. I drink the water, and guess what? I feel better. I feel more hydrated, right? I feel more awake and more alive because I feel as if my cells are waking up. So we have the trigger, then we have the action, and the third part is the reward. Now, if you could realize that everything you do, it's a routine, fits within these three things, now we can start to make some changes. Now we can start to make some pivots. And we can also do this by looking at the good and the bad. And in a minute here, I'm going to give you guys some homework. So if you are listening to this in a place where you can write some things down, please do get out your journal and your pen. If you're not, that's fine. We'll go over it. You can always come back to this podcast coming through. So, Tim, thoughts and pickups on trigger action reward.
Yeah, this is probably already happening in your life and is probably already either working for you or against you. And who knows, maybe Doug's going to take you through some of those examples in a moment. If not, we can always loop back around to that at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your flying blind here, bud, right now, because I'm just dumping this on you. Tim's been working hard back in. He's like, Doug, I have no idea what you're going to be talking about. So you're always great at that because you don't ruin it for me. That I appreciate it. So here's what I want you guys to do. So I want you guys to go ahead and put a line down the middle of your journal, the paper, a blank page, right? And you're going to do this on 2 pages. On the left column, I want you to write things that you want to stop, actions, triggers that you want to stop. On the right part of the page, things that you want to start. And then the next page, we're going to put do less on one side, do more on the other. And the third and final page, you don't have to put a line in the middle. It's just going to be continue. And what we want to do here is make a list of things that you want to stop doing. Now, I've fallen in the habit of when work is done, quote unquote, I got people staying at my house. As soon as work is done, I go upstairs because I actually work downstairs, and I go up and I see everybody and we open a bottle of wine and we have a drink. One drink turns into 2, often, sometimes 3. And this has become a routine over the holiday season, let's call it. And now I get to decide, does this routine serve me? What's the trigger? The trigger is walking upstairs and I go into the kitchen and I see friends and family who've been with us for a while. And there's a bottle of wine. So I take the action. Usually a glass is poured for me already. And then I get the reward. What's the reward I get? Well, I get to be social. I get to feel, kind of that free feeling when you drink alcohol, and it tastes good, right? So I get all these rewards and mechanisms here that establish this routine. Now we can get into the hierarchy of the 7 characteristics later that establish an actual addiction, right, to something, a different version of addiction. But you look at this and you say, okay, is that routine something I want to continue, do more of, do less of, stop or start? Right? It's obviously not something I need to start because I'm doing it. So I'm going to put this in the do less of category for myself, right? It's not stopping, but just do less of category. Tim, you look surprised. Where do you think I was putting it? In the do more of?
Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm going to put this in the do less category, right? And now I get to look at this and I want you guys to go down and look at all your routines that you're doing currently. What about working out? Do you get to do more? Do you get to do less? Tim's talked about this before as well, but a lot of guys, they decide, okay, I'm going to get in shape. And they go from 0 to 60 and they get injured and they hurt themselves and they go right back through this whole cycle. So maybe for some of you guys, you're backing off your workouts a notch. Some of you guys are just going to continue doing it. You're doing your Alpha Rise and Shine. You're getting after it. Kudos for you. Guys in the Inner Circle, which is our high-end mastermind group, these guys are playing at a very high level. They actually post their Alpha Rise and Shine every single day. It's amazing to watch. What are they doing? They're establishing a trigger. They're doing an action. They're Alpha Rise and Shine. They're getting the reward. The other guys are commenting on it. They're also getting the benefits of all the things they're doing. So that what they've done is they've put themselves in an environment, right? i.e. surrounded by all the other men within the movement in the inner circle and the coaches, which is Tim, Arthur, and I that are in there. And that environment alone is allowing them to establish a routine that gets them what they want. So what I want you to do is start looking through what you're currently doing, and also where you want to be. So if I said again, Doug and Tim 2.0, let's call that who we are today. I'm giving ourselves that recognition. And then Doug and Tim 3.0, where we want to be, right? Everybody has a journey where they want to get to. What do we want to start, stop, do less of, do more of, or continue? And you want to start writing those things down, guys. What is it you want to do? Maybe you, like me, like to be around a lot of high-performing men that aren't in it to take something from you per se, right? They're there to guide you, to help you, to mentor you. Then you want to be in a program like the Brotherhood or the Inner Circle. Now, you can't just get into this program. You have to go through the activation method and be invited. But that's the first step, is you have to get through the activation method. So maybe for you, you want to start doing more personal development or business development. Maybe you want to stop watching Netflix every night and instead work on yourself. Maybe you want to stop hanging out with men and people that are energy vampires, that drag you down, that don't allow you to grow. Maybe you want to do more of, I don't know, have sex. Want to have some more sex. That's cool. Write that down. And we can start putting these into routines. Not that sex is a routine, because I hope it isn't for you. Hope it's a regular thing you guys get. But now you can start establishing triggers, actions, and rewards around having more sex, right? And that's going to involve hopefully your partner. And how are you going to do that? And where are you going to go? So if you have a routine you want to do less of, let's just say, I'll use my analogy, right? Having some wine after work. I want to do less of that. Okay. Now what I get to do is establish a new trigger for going upstairs. And maybe that new trigger is as soon as I go upstairs, I do another action, which is pour myself a cup of tea. And the reward I get for the cup of tea is I'm going to lose body fat, right? Less calories, of course. I'm not going to be as inebriated, I guess, for lack of a better term. I'll be clear thinking. Other rewards is I can try new teas. We want to make this as easy as we can. We want to make this game-like and kid-like and fun. What is it you want to do? What is the reward that you get? Maybe I say to myself, Doug, if 4 nights out of the week you do tea, 3 nights you get wine, what's your reward? You get a massage at the end of the month when you hit that,
More
buddy.
wine.
You get more wine. Yeah.
Get beer. Push for one. We can have a beer. You can top up that third glass of wine with a beer.
There you go. Always good to mix. But you get the idea, guys. What you want to do, though, is take stock. For a lot of you guys, you're having problems in your marriage or your business. What are the routines in your marriage? What are the routines in your business? What are the routines with your wife? Do you guys both get up in the morning, go grab a cup of coffee? She goes and sits on the couch and journals. You go into the kitchen and do something else or check your phone immediately. Like, what are those routines realistically? Like, go through your day and really think about it. Anything that you do repeatedly is going to be a routine. Then identify in these categories. Do I want to start something different? Stop what the routine is. Do less, do more, continue. And when you do, I want you now to identify the trigger of anything that's there. What is the triggering effect? And then what's the action you take with the triggering effect, right? And what's your reward? So again, a lot of men that come through the program, a coach might say, hey, look, I want you to set 3 alarms on your phone to remind you about the hidden motives technique, right? To practice it. Every time that alarm goes off, I want you to have a unique sound to that alarm, not your normal ding, chime, or whatever. And when you hear that, I want you to immediately find somebody and practice the hidden motives with. Could be it, right? Or drop down and do 20 push-ups. Whatever it is. The trigger is the alarm, the action you're going to take, and then what's your reward? There's intrinsic rewards, but what actually are you getting out of that? And that reward is going to reinforce the trigger. And if your reward reinforces your trigger, then it's just about consistency. And once you start to get consistent, it happens right away. You get that action that you're looking for. Super simple example and how you can do this with your kids as well is I do something really simple with my kids, and I've done it very purposely. I just whistle twice and my kids come. It's like a pet, right? People at first were like, why are you treating your kids like a dog? My wife used to say all the time. But now if I'm anywhere in the house or anywhere outside, all I have to do is a certain whistle that I do and my kids come because they know that that's the trigger. It's like Pavlov's dogs, right? We want to do that to ourselves. We want to trigger ourselves for these good behaviors. Maybe it's nutrition that you're looking for in 2023. Most guys, when they set their goals, and I've had the opportunity of looking at thousands and thousands of men's goals over the years and women's, quite frankly. And what I see almost all the time, the majority of people for their new year resolution, first of all, people say, I never make them. It's bullshit. I think everybody makes them consciously or subconsciously. Just a finite time of the year makes sense. Is wealth and health. Those almost always make the list. I want to make more money or work less and make the same money, right? Thus leveraging my amount of money I'm making per time. Or I want to get in better shape. Now, that could be for you. Maybe you're in great shape and you want to be an Ironman and walk around at 5% body fat. I don't know. Or maybe it could be you just want to drop 2 pounds. I don't know. But I see one of those two things almost all the time. It's very rare not to see it. I'm also going to ask you guys, 20 years from now, you're sitting on your porch on a rocking chair. What's the most important territory for you? Now, the territories for you guys that don't listen to this podcast often are self, health, wealth, relationships, and business. Which of those is the most important to you 20 years from now? My guess is most of you guys are going to say relationships and maybe health. So what are you going to do more of to get you there? What are you going to do less of to get you there? What are you going to start? What are you going to stop? What are you going to continue? Take some time to ponder this, guys. We're doing a whole masterclass on this and other aspects of this planning to get much more advanced for the men that are in the brotherhood. They're going to be going through this in very, very rich detail. But I want you guys, right? Just giving it to you guys right now. This exercise can literally change your life. Tim, what's coming up for you?
When I wrote down trigger, action, reward, it reminded me of my time in Italy, where I got into the habit of having an ice cold beer. Oh my God, even the thought of it just makes me feel so good. But I'd found myself getting into this habit when we were living in Rome. We'd go out for dinner each night and I'd always get a cold beer. But it was so good because they brought the glass out of the freezer. So you can imagine how cold that was. It was like icy and frosty. Then the beer was cold as well. It was like 5 minutes down the road from the place we were staying in. So literally it might be 7 p.m. Close my laptop. Right, come on, Amelia, let's go for dinner. Within 10 minutes, I'm sat there with this beer. And oh God, the trigger was closing my laptop. The action was the beer. And the reward was the immense sense of refreshment, accomplishment, all sorts I got from that beer. And it wasn't until maybe a few weeks in, we realized we've been doing this pretty much most days. Because obviously, even when I wasn't working, I still wanted that taste, right? It was
Sure.
the trigger was just the thought of the beer. Maybe it was me seeing somebody drinking one, whatever. Didn't matter. By that point, it was hardwired, and just even the sight of somebody drinking, you can tell I'm like freaking foaming at the mouth right now.
You are.
So anyway, when I became aware of it, it wasn't a pattern or a routine that I wanted to do more of, that's for sure. Definitely wanted to do less of it. So For me, I started with the end in mind. Okay, what is the reward I'm getting from this beer? Well, it's helping me feel refreshed. It's helping to relax, unwind. So then I started to look, okay, well, how else could I give myself that same reward or a similar one? And by no means was it as nice, but I came up with the idea of having a cold shower, which worked. After I finished work, closed my laptop, go and have a cold shower. Definitely felt a lot more refreshed. Got to the restaurant maybe 10, 15 minutes later than we usually would. But my desire for that ice cold beer was a lot less, and I didn't have it as often. Now, was it as enjoyable as a nice cold beer? I'm not gonna lie, at first, no, but it just reached a point where my routine wasn't serving me. It wasn't something that I wanted to have happen for the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and so on. So I made the decision to change it. And I've done that with other things. Okay, what am I getting from this? Reward. And how can I get that reward a little bit differently?
Well, that's the important thing to talk about what you did there. What you did is you changed your environment, right? You went to the cold shower, not to the restaurant right away.
Mhm.
You made it easy for yourself in that action, right? It was also very efficient coming into it. So those all had aspects of it. And the fourth E, it was effective. It worked.
Mhm.
And that's how we look at the four E's. You applied all the four E's to this one action that allowed you to get a different reward. Now, the reward for you was probably a little more self-discipline, but also is you probably also felt healthier, felt better
Mhm.
about yourself. Now, the cold beer is the easy answer, right? I mean, right now I can tell you want to go downstairs in your house and open a
Oh,
cold beer right
fuck yeah.
now.
I mean,
And maybe you should.
oh, that beer.
Um,
Do more of.
you put that in the continue category,
Yeah.
right? But you get to see where these things serve you. Maybe it's just for a season, right? Maybe it's a season. There's a lot of guys. We're going to Cuba, guys. So we have 50 men descending upon Cuba. They're all involved in the Powerful Man movement. And a lot of those guys, I'll give you a hint for those guys that aren't involved in this conversation, the boys in the inner circle, they're hitting it hard and they're getting ready for Cuba, right?
Mhm.
They're hitting that's a reward, right? They're setting themselves up. So they're going to do more of or just continue what they're doing. They've also, in order to get this trigger, right? We talked about the Voxer math message these guys got going on. It's their environment. They're surrounded by other high performing men. Iron sharpens iron. And they're posting it. Posting it's easy. Right? Get easy. It's efficient because they're getting instant feedback from the other men. And guys are calling each other out playfully. A little razzing here and there is good for you. But go back through that list and then start working on your trigger, action, reward. For boys in the Brotherhood and the Inner Circle, we're going to be going a deep dive on this in one of the master classes. But you can get a head start and do it now.
Yeah, masterclass is going to be great. I'm looking forward to that. The guys will get a lot out of it.
They will. And for the listeners, I always feel bad to them because people ask questions. We do a masterclass, 4 masterclasses every month. So we go 4 masterclass, do a whole masterclass for 4 weeks, take a week off, and do another, bring in a guest expert that week off. This is all for the men that are within the program, the Brotherhood, the Inner Circle, and one-on-one coaching that we offer through the Powerful Man. So we're going to go through this in detail. And again, guys, this is something you could just listen to and go about your day, or this is something you can actually use, action, and change the triggers in your life and get the results you actually want.
Hmm. Yeah, you and I got recommended to read a book called Streaking. Unfortunately, it's
That's
not the
right.
kind of streaking that I thought it was going to be. Instead, it's around habits.
I
and
haven't read it yet.
Yeah, it's good. I'm about halfway through, and it talks about, well, how do you set up this streak? And man, it's got these. It talks about these crazy examples of this one guy who's 85, and he has got a 47-year streak, and he's got a
Woo!
47-year streak of running or walking at least 1 mile a day. And obviously, you know what happens when you do the first mile. Typically, you're going to go for a little bit longer and a little bit longer. But more importantly, what happens for your self esteem by making and keeping promises to yourself, even on the days where you really don't want to do it, it creates a level of confidence and certainty that is hard to compete with. And it talks about a lot about the people at the top, right? People who are performing at an elite level. One of the key things that has them be at that level is consistency. Just being consistent, boom, 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 over the long term, right? And part of the way of setting up a streak is the first thing you've got to know what you want to streak. So what you're going to choose, and obviously it's got to be something that is related to an outcome that's meaningful for you. So what is it going to be? And then really it's about making it very easy to do the streak. So let's say you want to run a marathon, right? If you set a streak that of running or walking 1 mile a day, that's something that's pretty easy to do, right? You're more than likely going to do it. Whereas if you say you're going to run 5K a day and you've not really been running, then that's hard. It's going to take a toll on your body, probably going to get injured. It's much harder to do on the days when you really don't feel like doing it. So then the minimum viable product, if you will, to the minimum base is 5K. That's a lot versus a mile. So first thing is knowing what the goal is, knowing what the streak is, and setting the frequency of the streak. Is it daily? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? Whatever it is. And then just having something, creating community around yourself to be able to make the streak easy and share and celebrate and all that stuff. And then having something visible where you can track your streak and see your streak that's building pace, quite frankly. When I think about that and I think about what you're sharing here and the guys in the inner circle and the Voxer chat and everything else, a lot of the most successful men that we work with do a lot of these things already, and they're doing them unconsciously, which is great. So I think when we bring a level of, or when you bring a level of awareness and conscious intention to this through the masterclass, how can we begin to imagine where they'll be?
Oh, absolutely. It reminds me of a couple streaks that I have going on. I'll talk to you about that offline, though, Tim. And we can get something. I feel a little friendly competition about to occur.
Okay.
But gentlemen, the key here is really doing the work, right? We always talk about that and get into the 3 cycles: trigger, action, and reward, right? And where are you going? And who around you? Like right after this, I'm going to stop by and Tim and I are going to have a discussion around this topic. Who do you have by your side? Do you have your own brotherhood inner circle? And if not, I highly recommend getting one, whether it be through the Powerful Man movement or somewhere else. Iron sharpens iron, guys. And this is how you get to break these habits and these goals, these New Year resolutions that you've had for years about learning the foreign language or whatever else it may be. This is the mechanisms to actually make that happen. Gentlemen, as we always say, in the moment of insight, take massive action. We'll see you next time. Powerful Man Show. All right, guys, that's a wrap for this episode. But as I always say, in the moment of insight, take massive action. You see, there are 2 types of men that listen to a podcast like this. Those that go on from one podcast or show to another, just hoping things are going to change and realizing that they're going to be in the same place month after month, year after year. You see, I was this guy, so I completely get it. You may just not be ready. But there's also a second man that listens to a show just like this. And this is a guy who takes massive action so they can shorten the learning curve, compress time, and get results to be the wolf. See, wolf is an acronym for wise, open, loving, and fierce. Now, ask yourself, which one am I? And just be honest with yourself there. And there's no judgment on my end, but if you're ready to move from deactivated deer mode, which is defend, excuse, explain, react, to activated wolf, wise, open, loving, and fierce, then go over to thepowerfulman.com/grow and go there now. In fact, I'll make it super easy for you. I will even put the link right in the description here, so you can just click it and go over there now to learn more. Guys, in the moment of insight, take massive action. Go from deactivated to activated, because like I said, life is too short for average. And I'll see you on the next episode.